Welcome to today's deep dive. So today we are unpacking a grassrootschange.org petition out of Middle Georgia that is actually gaining some pretty serious local traction.
Yeah, they just hit a big milestone, right?
Exactly. They are celebrating because, well, we've gotten 50 signatures. And our mission today is to explore this campaign, which was started by Stephen Todd Faircloth.
Right, and it's built on these two pretty alarming structural paradoxes. I mean, they call them the victim-to-suspect pipeline and priority inversion.
Which sound highly academic, honestly.
They do, yeah.
Yeah.
But the petition uses them to describe this really terrifying shift in reality for citizens who are just, trying to interact with their local government.
So let's start with this victim-to-suspect pipeline. Like, what is the actual mechanism there? How does someone go from being the victim to, a suspect?
Well, according to the campaign documentation, it basically happens when citizens step forward to report institutional abuse or maybe request missing public records.
Okay, so they're just asking for information.
Right, exactly. But instead of following standard administrative processes, the local agency gets defensive. And when the citizen follows up to get answers, they get flagged as a nuisance.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then suddenly they are hit with a retaliatory charge, like trespassing or obstruction. So they literally go from seeking help to wearing handcuffs.
That is wild. I mean, it's like calling the fire department because your house is burning down, but when they show up, instead of a hose, they hand you a match and start interrogating you about the fire.
That is the perfect way to visualize it. And I mean, that's exactly why this campaign is celebrating that 50 verified signature milestone right now.
Right, because 50 signatures might sound small compared to those massive global campaigns you see online.
Oh, for sure.
But for a hyper-local issue, that's serious momentum. They're urging the community to push for 100 next, and I think the ultimate goal is hitting 1,000.
Yeah, because statistically, crossing that 1,000 supporter mark makes a petition. I think it's 5 times more likely to succeed. They're just trying to build undeniable numbers to combat what they see as a systemic failure.
Right. But I guess my question is, how does a local municipality even afford to operate a system that actively works against its citizens?
Well, that brings us to the second paradox, which is priority inversion.
Okay, explain that one.
So if the pipeline is the human cost, priority inversion is the financial root cause. Think of it like a homeowner buying a state-of-the-art surveillance system while the roof is literally caving in.
Right.
The petition argues that local governments are authorizing these historic expenditures for expansive law enforcement tech while, completely starving basic community infrastructure.
Wait, I have to challenge you on that a little bit.
Sure.
Because the petition cites the Make and Bib FY 2027 budget, and it claims there is $6.26 million allocated for IT operations.
Yeah, that's the number.
But then only $2.1 million from the general fund for basic roads and drainage. I mean, are you sure those numbers aren't cherry-picked to make a point? Because that sounds completely backwards.
It does sound backwards. But looking at the fiscal documentation, that is the literal breakdown of the general fund. The grievance here is that luxury venues and IT networks get this aggressive, unquestioned funding.
While citizens are left with severe backlogs for, fixing basic potholes and neighborhood drainage?
Exactly.
I mean, if a city is spending nearly triple on surveillance and IT, rather than fixing the literal streets, it really makes you wonder, are they funding public safety or just public control?
And that is exactly the question the petition is demanding that high-level decision makers answer, like Governor Brian Kemp and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation.
Right.
And to fix this, they are demanding 3 specific structural remedies. First on that list is independent review.
Which makes complete sense. I mean, removing the inherent conflict of interest when local agencies investigate their own personnel. What's next?
Second is records transparency. And this specifically means unimpeded public access to body camera metadata and CAD histories.
CAD histories being the raw 9/11 computer dispatch logs, right?
Yes, exactly. Because when an incident occurs, the public wants the raw data, not some curated summary. And then the third remedy is budget accountability.
Now, these demands aren't just sprouting out of thin air either. The sources really ground this in real human tragedies.
They do, yeah.
They point to the Macon Inn altercation, which involved a heavily disputed police encounter without proper footage. And then there's the Stephen Lamont Johnson case.
Right, which centers on a mother's exhausting search for the truth after her son's death. When you look at those cases, you realize these are deeply personal tragedies for the community.
Yeah.
However, the petition goes out of its way to clarify a really crucial point. This is strictly a pro-accountability, pro-victim initiative.
It's not an anti-law enforcement campaign.
Exactly, not at all. The argument is that lawful officers and honest public servants actually benefit when institutional records are complete and transparent.
Just to be clear for you listening, our role today isn't to take a side or endorse a campaign.
Right, we're just analyzing the text.
Exactly. We are simply mapping out the terrain of this grassroots push for transparency and exploring the arguments presented in their documentation.
And the terrain they've mapped out, I mean, from the mechanics of retaliatory arrests to the cold, hard numbers of a city's ledger, is undeniably compelling.
It really is. It leaves you with a lot to think about. In fact, if a budget truly shows a city's priorities, what would a deep dive into your own local government's financial ledger reveal about how they view your safety? Would you find a fire department ready with water or, just more matches?